Hi, everyone, and welcome to Presently Aqui with Claudia. Presently Aqui is a community of healers that come together to share their remarkable stories of their path to self-discovery and um, hopes to empower you, to inspire you, and motivate you to your path to self-love as well. And I always get excited to have a guest because it is just so important for us to share space and community. And today I have a remarkable man with us today, Purdeep Sangha, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. Purdeep, welcome. Hi.
Claudia, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor, honestly. Um, so Pradeep and I were having great conversation, and I got to know about his work, and so even more so, the conversations that we're going to have today are very, very important and pertinent to society today. Pradeep, if you don't mind introducing yourself a little bit to our listeners.
Absolutely. So you can say a husband, I'm a father, I have two youngins,
Mhm.
I'm an entrepreneur. And one of my biggest passions is really helping other people. And that's essentially what I do day in and day out. We have a number of different companies that focus on that, both on the business side, but more importantly on the personal side. So every day we are working with professionals in terms of helping them enhance their lives in all areas. So not only just their own, you can say well-being, but their relationships, health, and all the different aspects that come along with being a human being with, you can say, kind of with a spiritual edge as well.
Beautiful. Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. So before we get into Pradeep's journey, we're gonna take three deep breaths, which would I always say three, but really it's 4 or 5. But so if the listener, if you're driving, please just do this later. For anyone at home right now listening, please go ahead and take a comfortable seat and close your eyes, and we're gonna take three deep breaths together. So, the first deep breath, I want you to just settle into your body right now. So, go ahead and take that deep breath. And on the second deep breath, I want you to just be present with your mind and all that it encompasses and all the thoughts. And on your third deep breath, I want you to breathe deeply into your heart space. And on the next deep breath, I want you to just take a full body deep breath and be with your entire self. So I'll give you 2 deep breaths for that, for you to sit with yourself. And when you are ready, just come back to the now. And we are here and ready for this remarkable interview. And now that we've cleansed our mental palates, we are ready to have this phenomenal conversation. So, Brother Pradeep, what is some of the challenges that you face on your path to self-discovery?
Oh, challenges. Where
Love.
do I start?
What is? Well, how does as a child or as a teenager or as a young adult, where in that spectrum did you feel the beginnings of self-awareness?
Uh, well, I would say probably from a very young age, and that kind of ties in with the whole challenge part too. So at a young age, I was always fascinated and been drawn to animals. I don't know what it was, but my mom told me ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated, and animals would be drawn to me. So, and I grew up on an orchard. I would say
Mm,
that's the unique
mm,
aspect of my life is I was
yeah.
pretty much born and raised on an orchard. So when my
Wow.
parents were picking apples, I would be in an apple bin. I spent my entire early up to my early adulthood, up until about 20 years old, on an orchard.
Wow.
Weekends, summers, anytime I was outside of school, I was pretty much there. So that really, I'm going to say that for me was a huge um, spiritual, energetic upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
for much of that time, like there could be, the entire day where I wouldn't even be talking to another person. So I'd be in silence with nature.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting, a very mindful
Mm-hmm.
upbringing. And then I also, there's two parts to this. One is my grandfather lived with us as well. So my dad's dad, he was in the Indian Army for 30 plus years, but he was also a very spiritual man. His
Mm.
father, my great grandfather, was a spiritual teacher in India for 60 years. And so I do believe that kind of went through our lineage a little bit. My grandfather
Mm-hmm.
taught me a ton when it came to spirituality, meditation, mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
philosophy. And that was a big impact on my life. But I would say the biggest one, and this relates to a challenge too, was my relationship with my dad.
Mm.
Because my dad was an amazing person when he was sober, but he also struggled with alcoholism.
Mm.
And so he was a great dad. He did everything for us as a family.
Right.
There's nothing that he wouldn't do for us.
Right.
But yet when he drank too much, he became a completely different person.
Right.
And so that's really where I started to study more of the human side, the psychology side of things, and relationships. And it was tough because it'd be one thing if I say I had a crappy dad,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But I had a great dad who just struggled with alcoholism. And at those
Right.
times, he wasn't a great dad at all. It was
Mm-hmm.
complete opposite.
Right.
So it was a real challenge for me internally because I had to deal with these types of, it's a balance.
Yeah.
How do you love your dad and hate your dad at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's something I grew up with, and I had to resolve my own feelings and then had challenges with that. But I would say that was a huge part of why I do what I do today and where I am today, because every single day there isn't a moment that goes by where I get a deeper understanding of my dad, who is no longer
Mm.
around. He's been no longer he hasn't been here for 5 years,
Wow.
but I feel like I'm living in his footsteps and completing a path that he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to complete.
Wow, and that's true. Everything you just, up to the point of finishing that sentence, shows how much healing you've done in that space. Even the way you preface how you view your father, right? Saying like he was a great dad, but he struggled with alcoholism, and that is already, for me, showing that you've definitely deepened this space within yourself to understand, right? To where is the hurt coming from? Why
Mm-hmm.
does it hurt? Because he's so great, but this part hurts. Like, so you're trying to make amends and understand where is that coming from. So, and then the beautiful aspect that most people don't understand is that, our parents can only walk so far with their understanding of life. And it is us, the children, that walk further, and then our children, and then, right? So, that's also so beautiful to hear, and my condolences to you. So I definitely understand. I lost my father 2 years ago as well,
Oh,
and
is it?
so
Sorry.
so it is that part, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and then another aspect of losing one parent is, or both, it is your tethering, right, to this plane, right? But for you, you have children, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
tethers you as well, into that space. So that's another space to get into conversation later. But so as we're going into your beautiful journey here, and you being in nature more, right? Because that, as a child, will keep you in a mindful, self-aware space, because nature
Mm-hmm.
is that, right? She is just so giving and such a phenomenal teacher. And as a child, you embracing her and the animals that are part of that,
Yeah.
really stays with you. And then, the ancestry that you come from with the spiritual, um, I would say, the what is that, the patriarchs in your family, right? So did you, as you're coming into a different space, even being raised and brought up into this, and as you're going into modern society and going to school, I'm sure, did you struggle with having such deep awareness of yourself, and being around school or peers or anything like that? Was there any struggle for you there, or was that not as?
Uh, yeah, school was interesting because it
Mm.
was so from a practical perspective, we lived in a predominantly Caucasian town and city. So at that time too, there was a lot of racism. So there was
Okay.
that element.
Right.
Um, I can say if I'm understanding your question correctly, there was a period of my time. So I felt very deeply, very connected. So to nature and things. So yes, when an animal would suffer, I felt like I was suffering or feeling their suffering. When a tree would suffer, I felt like I was suffering. So I did feel that. And there was a period of time where I was tired of that. And that was probably
Interesting.
between 20 something to 30 something. I'd actually just shut myself off that plane because I didn't want to feel that. Because there was a deeper connection, definitely on the more positive and the deep bond level, whether it was human beings or with nature or other living beings. But on the other side, there was a lot of pain that came along with that as well. A lot of how am I going to say, seeing through people's shells when it came to how they were living and
Right.
how they were portraying themselves and seeing the true pain that many of them were facing. And
Yes.
so I didn't like that. I
Right.
didn't like that at all. And so for 10-year period, which kind of coincided with parting years as well, you can say 20 to 30, I shut that part down and then reopened after 30 in terms of being able to do that. And over the last 5 years, 6 years, probably in particular, just taking it to a deeper level.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. And I could totally understand that. Um, that was a space where I never thought of it that way. Where I'm like, yeah, I know what you're saying. And also, I just recently came to have an understanding of the hypothalamus that listens to you. So if you shut down these aspects, right, kind of these open portals in our chakra system, right, and you're just like, actually, don't want to. I don't want to. It could be seeing, right? Your third eye could be feeling. It could be whatever, and just be like, listen, I don't just close this door, and it'll just do it, and it'll just shut it, and you're the boss, right? So it just be like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't want that. And even in that time frame that you were in feeling that way, I definitely had some of those moments myself as well, and unconsciously not knowing that that's what was happening. So thank you for giving me an understanding of that time frame in my life. I'm like, yeah, that's what that's what happened. Where I was just so in tuned and tapped in that it
Mm-hmm.
was just uh, and especially, right, let me know if you agree, when you're a teenager and young adult, it's just so much other things going on that's just adding more to the overwhelmingness of changing the body, the mind, where you who you are, where do you fit in. So it just becomes a little much, um, in that space. So I could definitely relate and understand that. That's truly remarkable. So, at what point in this journey, I know that you were already inspired and motivated to kind of have a thought of, seeing the way people struggle, right? And how they have to preface themselves outwardly to be seen and accepted. And that is difficult to watch for sure, even, today still goes on. Um, so, how did you pivot into the space that you're in today? Like, what was that moment that made you either study or get into it more, and that shifted your life to where you are?
Are you asking specifically probably around the spiritual side?
Just to yourself, either could be spiritual, emotionally, or actually studying. Just what was the moment that you faced, right? That you saw, what, I want to do this moving forward for the rest of my life. I want to study
Oh,
this. I want to help people do this because this happened.
yeah, and I don't know if it was anything in like one instance in particular. I
Mm.
think it was just who I am, and
Mm.
so it was part of, excuse me, it was part of who I am,
Right.
and so I could not, like, there's not do that.
Mm.
That's not part of who I am. So it's
Mm.
built into me ever since, like I said, as a child, being drawn to animals and
Right.
animals being drawn to me.
Right.
And when I was a kid, injured animals, I would find them. I would try to nurse them back to nature. Stray animals, people
Mm-hmm.
knew in our neighborhood if they lost a cat or dog or stray animal, come to our
Right.
house because most likely it'd be there.
Wow.
So that was just a natural part of who I was. At 17, I became a personal trainer because I wanted to help other people.
Mm.
Through university, I was an academic tutor. And I didn't realize this till later on in my years. Like there was a big part of me that wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, yeah, wow, like I still do want to be a teacher, but have a deeper impact, not just, hey, this is a concept, this is how you can help yourself do something differently or achieve your goal or whatever that is, but helping them along the way as well. Because
Right.
that for me, seeing their progress, seeing their fulfillment was a big part. So to answer your question, sorry, is I don't know any other way than
Mm-hmm.
doing what I am and being who I am.
That's beautiful. And you embraced that, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
nourished it through time and was able to make a career out of it, which is remarkable because, again, these conversations are important because everybody's journey is different, right? So some people were either in tune at an early age or they came into awakening later, right? And something would do that. So I've had a spectrum of beautiful guests that have different journeys in that aspect because again, the listener, we don't know who they are and what is their journey. So just giving them that space of like, oh, this, I was in that space. I remember that. Or even for me, right, when you gave me that little nugget, it just helps to understand like, hey, you're not alone, right? You're not alone in the journey that you're in. It could be, you know, the caterpillar stage, your cocoon, or the butterfly, right? So it's just more, as you and I both know that most people are in either the caterpillar or cocooning stage, and so it
Mm-hmm.
just helps to be like, hey, this even though because you and I have similar, like we were always in that space as kids, but that doesn't mean that we didn't have challenges, right? Because most of the world isn't so tapped into themselves, right? And here we are trying to help them do that. And just because we can see you, right, we could see you in your heart space versus the facade that you're trying to portray. So as you're trying to pull that out of them, right, in a comforting, healthy space, because you know um, there are people out there that don't have such a deep understanding of, I would say, human behavior patterning and the suffering that comes with,
Mm-hmm.
right, that they haven't faced, or shadow aspects. And so it is a total gift. So, question for you. Did you, at any point, as you're learning about who you are, were you tapped into a space where you're like, you know what, I want to push and learn more about this ability that I naturally have? Did you have that at all in your path?
Yeah, yeah, and that was as a kid as well. So I was fortunate
Mm,
enough to um, uh, be very good in academics,
mm,
and I came across. So I learned meditation, mindfulness at a very young age because my grandfather. I came across lucid dreaming as a child as well.
okay.
And I used to do a lot of walking meditation for hours, and so I came across. I don't know if I tripped upon it or if it was given to me, whatever it was, but this innate ability to tap into something different.
Yeah.
And that enabled me to do things different. That enabled me to be um, uh, very strong in academics. So I could ace a test easy, and all the other kids in school be like, oh, how are you doing this? You barely study or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I had a photographic
Mm-hmm.
I had a photographic memory. I was able to do things and have more willpower and achieve things a lot faster. And then I started to learn more. I had this desire to learn about the brain and the human body at that time and human potential. And that we're talking 30 plus years ago.
Right.
So that wasn't even really big at that time.
Right.
And so started studying famous inventors like Leonardo da Vinci and Einstein and what they did. And there's a very similar theme in all of them that they didn't attribute their success or their genius to themselves. It was this higher power or universal genius. So that was a concept that I learned at a very young age and I applied and I tapped into. So
Mm-hmm.
creative insight. I used to do funny things too because I was learning about brain science. I used to walk around, with blindfolds, for example, to
Mm-hmm.
see how I could test out other senses.
Yes.
Listen to TV at a very, very, very low level just to, train my hearing, for example, and doing all these things that were considered weird at that time, that
Yeah.
science has now shown to be, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look, it actually increases your sensory input or ability to sense certain things. So yeah, I kind of tripped upon this and
Wow.
started to study that at a younger age when kids
Yeah.
were playing or
Yeah.
kids were, learning about other things. Up until this point, I would probably say, outside of a couple of people, there's no one that I know that has been studying humans
Mm-hmm.
and human potential and spirituality for as long as I have.
Right.
And I
Wow.
mean within my own inner circle,
No,
because I just
totally. Yeah.
I just did it at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
and thankful for that.
Yeah, wow, that is remarkable. That is remarkable. You're really blindfolding yourself. Yes, today they are doing that to kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing. I don't know if you know Dan Winter. He's the one of the people that created the Heart Math Institute.
Oh, heart math, yes,
So he
yeah.
is such a brain to listen to. It's so in depth and heavy that I'll fall asleep listening to him because I need to process the amazing things that he talks about. So he's working with this woman, helping children to see without eyes, and they blindfold them,
Mm-hmm.
right, where you can open, right, kind of the oculus in your third eye, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just small until it becomes big, and asking them questions, right, sensory questions, so that's really impressive that you were already doing it before it's a thing now. And I feel that the leaders of today, such as yourself, that we've had these experiences at an early age so we can kind of lead in the space. And the people that are coming into this newly have guides and mentors to kind of go into, because I feel that a lot of the people that come on to my podcast have this, like you were saying, this willpower that is, it comes from outside of yourself. It's just when you open up the channels, right? It just kind of floods in and kind of, I don't want to say that you're not driving the vehicle, but it gives you the extra oomph to be more present and aware of you and the things that you come with, your abilities, right? So and then here we are, right, where we're at precipice, I feel, in our society, where it's shifted dramatically because of the pandemic, and people are more coming into self-awareness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully for all the leaders in the space, there is a lot of people that they can go to, right? And that's what this community is about, amongst other communities, right? Because we
Yeah.
as leaders, we have our own internal communities, right? And it's just coming together in such a remarkable, um, I don't even know, sometimes I'm just blown away by how we are here today and the things that we're, this is why I love these conversations, to allow you to, I know you have seen the progress, but for the listener to see like how it just came to be today. And
Mm-hmm.
now that the listener's like, oh my God, I resonate with Pradeep. I would love to know more, right? Or anyone else, because that is the need, right now. It's just listening to the call. So same idea, like this wasn't like I had a plan and a goal of being a podcaster and having these people and asking these questions. The phone rang, the universe said XYZ, and I was like, what? I'm doing what now? Right? It's kind of that
Yeah.
space. And even the mindfulness, I was always in it, but I didn't know that I could offer it up. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's all of that, and just how it just comes together. So, in what I'm going with this is that for the listener out there, I want you to understand that where you are in your journey, and you could be in the mud right now, which is your suffering, right? It all has a purpose. It has a meaning, and it will give you a new tool on your tool belt, a new gem on your crown. It has a purpose to lead you to today. And Pradeep, what is your community offering? You as a butterfly now, what is it that you offer your community and now mine?
Well, my community kind of it spreads out, but predominantly, I would say, majority of our community are men.
Mm-hmm.
and they're professional men. Men are men who are, you can say, doing the best they can in their professions and careers, but also family oriented. So they're married, they aspire to have kids, or they already have kids. So
Mm-hmm.
family oriented men is our audience, and typically what we do is we work with them. So we have different programs. We basically help them achieve what they're looking to achieve in life. So whether that's um, make more money, whether that's be in a better marriage, whether that's be a better father, just be more fulfilled in life. That's what we do. So we have specific programs, whether it's group coaching, whatever that is. But essentially, the what we offer is just a different perspective
Mm-hmm.
on how to look at life. It's just a philosophy. It's a way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
and a way of being.
Right.
And it's not always for everybody, but I try to clarify what I've learned. And again, there's so many different paths in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so for someone who listens to my podcast or taps into our teachings and applies it, if it works for them, great. If it doesn't,
Right.
that's fine. There's probably another path for them to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, we do work predominantly with men because I do believe a lot of men are lost these days.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stigma towards men and masculinity and what men truly represent, or the masculine energy truly represents. And so that is a key focus for us, and it's also part of my passion and my mission and what I'm good at, because men out there need the assistance, the guidance, and there's not very many places that can offer that in a mindful way, that provide the whole approach. And when I say whole, we incorporate all the different elements. We incorporate the psychological, the high performance, the relationship, the parenting. We incorporate that all so that an individual can come to us and say, hey, this is an area that we're focusing on. Because here's what I typically find, and this isn't a criticism, this is just a challenge that I see, is it's great to be able to implement something in your life. So a lot of guys will go to, let's just say, business conference and learn about business and how to scale. But the key element they're not getting from that is, how do they change as an individual? Because in order for them to scale their business, they have to actually scale themselves. And so that's a core part, and that's what we help with. So it really became something that I learned at a very young age. And that was at 17. So I was a personal trainer at 17. I was helping other people gain muscle if they wanted to, lose weight, get fitter, just feel better about themselves. And what I realized was I can lay out a complete plan for them, fitness plan, meal plan, whatever it was. That didn't mean that 80% of them wouldn't execute.
Right.
And what I realized was there's far too more to being a human being trying to achieve something than actually having a plan in place and a strategy in place.
Totally.
So it is all about belief systems, what we hold to be true, our level of energy, the people around us, all of these different elements. It's an ecosystem.
Yes.
And that's what I've been breaking down over the last 30 plus years, is what is that ecosystem for a human being?
Right.
And how do we bring all those elements together? So that's what we've kind of brought to the table in terms of what we do.
That's remarkable. Being a mindfulness person, that's, the foundational level of you, right? Because I went to the Conscious Life Expo here in Los Angeles, and it's here every year, and it's my second year. So going into what you're saying, people that are going to this space are seeking something, right? It could be the same, the business. They're just going to spiritual and learning, getting information, but they're not learning, how do I integrate that? How does that pertain to me? Why is this important to me? Why do I want to learn, right? All these self-investigative, self-reflective questions that need to happen prior to even attaining information, right? Because one of the things that that's prevalent in society, that the truth is hidden and all this nonsense, when the truth is just there. Is just, you have to have the respect of the knowledge that you're trying to attain for yourself. Like, why do you go to these businesses? Why do you want to learn about finances? Why do you want to learn about spirituality? Why first, right? So I love that you encompass like that. Where are you as the individual? Where are you in your path? Where are you? Where's your mind? Where's your body? Where's your heart, right? Where are these spaces before we can, add being better at relationships, being better at work, being better for yourself, like all like you first, right? And so, one of the things that I was excited for today's conversation, which is kind of like, not that we kind of sped up into your journey, but I wanted to go into the deep gender roles, right? And we're talking about, and having you was really important for me, for you as the man to kind of help people refresh, kind of a reminder of the organic human, I would say, the organic human divine self, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is the masculine and the feminine. And for me, I always bring it to alchemy, right? Alchemy is those energies, the energies, and when they come together, creation happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost that in society, and it's become so interesting. I was telling Pradeep, I have a soul brother, where he brought to my awareness. He's like, I know you don't go to men's bathrooms, but when you go to your bathroom, it says women's, right? He's like, when I go to my bathroom, now it says all gender. It doesn't say men's bathroom, and that was
Mm-hmm.
huge. That was really big. Um, and so I was more excited to have you because we really need to dive in, and I wanted to give time for this space. And I love how you brought up men are feeling lost. Why do you feel that that's where we are now? How did the male gender get here now?
Well, well, let's talk about where we are here now first, and then we can get into that. Where we
Totally.
are is in a place where gender is totally confused in terms of what the meaning is
Right.
and the biological elements and the spiritual elements, right? So there's a social structure, there's a biological structure, then there's an energetic structure. And people are confused about the interconnections between the three. So essentially, we're at a place where men are struggling mainly because men tend to do things themselves. There's not a big support network out there, but they're getting a lot of confusing messages.
Right.
It's no longer good to be a strong masculine man anymore. Or if you're a strong masculine man, for example, you need to give up your role in, let's just say, a corporate world for a female, because we need more females in those types of roles.
Right.
And let's just use that as an example. I'm always for diversity. I think that's
Totally.
important. I'm always for equity. I think that's important as well, and inclusivity. But I think it poses a challenge, especially when you go into an environment, into a professional environment where a performance is a big thing, right?
Yes.
Getting results is a big thing. And you say, hey, look, we're not going to take the best candidate. We're going to take this candidate because it fits our inclusivity. Well, what is that message to that person, especially a masculine energy
Right.
that is driven to perform and achieve? It's completely defeating. If you take a look at 95% of workplace deaths, we're talking about high-risk jobs in the world, whether it's firefighters, police, military, whatever it is, or even construction, all those
Right.
types of jobs. We're not just talking about that. 95% are men.
Yes.
And they're men because men are okay, I shouldn't say fully okay with putting their lives on the line, but they understand the stakes and they continue to do it because
Right.
that's part of the masculine energy.
Right.
So and men are being taught, hey, look, it's not good to be masculine. There's a difference between being masculine and being open with your emotions, right? They're not the same. My dad was a very masculine man. When he came into the room, you didn't even have to know, like you didn't have to see him. You could feel his presence.
Yes.
And he was a very emotional man too. He was the one that taught me that it's okay to cry as a man, right? That doesn't make you any less manly. And no one questioned my dad's masculinity.
Right.
Because they just couldn't, right? Because that energy was there.
Right.
So because we are training men to not have that energy of masculinity, it's impacting them in many different ways. And men are not only being seen as weaker now, they're actually performing weaker now. They are being weaker now.
Yes.
And that's throwing off relationships with the feminine and the masculine in terms of how the two interact,
Correct.
right? That beautiful dance.
Yes.
So that's where we are today. And I fear for the younger generation because children my son's age who are 10 years old, they're not getting any I'm going to say the lucky ones are getting insight in terms of what it means to be masculine.
Right.
The rest are not.
Right.
And so we're going to have an entire generation that doesn't understand masculinity whatsoever.
Right.
So that's where we are. How do we get there? Well, I think some of it part of it we did to ourselves, because there was, I'm going to say, it wasn't true masculine energy. There's different forms, and you can say different meanings of, some call it the dark masculine, right? Whatever it might be. But immature is another way to put it, where there was, women were oppressed, like, treated very poorly. The feminine energy in a lot of respects was abused.
Right.
And so there was kind of a pushback, and that in practical society, that was a feminist movement, 60s, 70s, this, and it was needed because women needed equal rights.
Yes.
But the pendulum swung so far, and people don't fully understand. And so what was discounted was, with the feminist movement came this whole nurture concept, which was, hey, genes don't have anything to do with it as much as you're nurturing, meaning that you are a masculine person because you were raised to be masculine. You are feminine because you were raised to be feminine. Not necessarily your biology says that, or your spiritual energy says that, right? And again, we have both masculine and feminine in us. There's just a degree to which we have this.
Right.
So because society didn't understand that our biology is different. Hey, look, women have more estrogen, progesterone. And if you give a man estrogen, his body changes, his mind changes, the way they think change.
Yes.
The reverse is also true. You give a woman more testosterone, her body changes. She'll grow more hair, for example, right? A structured jaw, all these types of things. So I think it's just common sense to say women traditionally, and men traditionally, when I say the term now, is because it's so confusing, are different. And we're biologically different. And we have different skill sets. We have different strengths and different weaknesses as well.
Totally.
That's why we are here, because people haven't understood the three fundamental aspects. The difference between, let's just say, men and women biologically, the difference between men and women socially, and the difference between masculine and feminine from an energetic perspective. Yes. I was lucky enough that I grew up in a traditional Indian household. But it was somewhat different. My mom worked just as hard as my dad, but she still did the cooking stuff. But my dad did, a lot of the other stuff. He would bathe us as kids. My dad didn't do the cooking or the dishes, but he did more bathing. He did the outside work. He did all the other stuff too. My dad wasn't hey, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch TV and drink a beer while you work. But they had very clear, distinct gender roles. My mom cooked. My mom cleaned. Right? So I grew up with this, you can say, system of gender roles that worked, and that both parties were able to work within because it was natural to their energy. And because we've confused that, we don't have that anymore. If you don't nurture the masculine energy in a boy, for example, and he grows up, well, he's not going to have those natural tendencies where they're going to be played down. And that's what we're teaching boys. It's not good to roughhouse. There's a difference between roughhousing and bullying. But it's a natural piece for the masculine energy, and even the feminine, it's more playful to roughhouse a little bit, right? And boys that roughhouse, it's okay as long as no one's getting seriously injured, right? And it's for women too. This is the big challenge now, is women are being told, both directly and indirectly, that it's not okay just to stay at home. And when I say just to stay at home, that's how it's presented, to raise children.
Yes.
Right? That's not a profession. That's not a job. That's not, you're less than because you choose to raise your children, because that's important to you. You should have a career on the side, or have someone taking care of your children and have your career. It's better to be independent, right, than be in a traditional woman's role. So there's confusion. People aren't taking into consideration, and it's a very, I'm going to say, challenging time today.
It is totally. Thank you so much for breaking it down so beautifully. It is a very challenging time, and what I see it as is distorted energy, right? It's distortion in the system, and it's inorganic. And so that is what's creating this energy, right? It's a distortion in the frequency and the vibrational space of who we are, to take it into a spiritual, deeper space. And when we distort these organic systems, let's just say, we made Mother Nature do things that she was not supposed to. Would it result into positive outcomes? More than likely, no. So the truth goes the same for our organic ways, right? The biological aspects. What does it say when when you tell your body, me as a woman, and I say, no, I'm a man? The body is listening to me. So
Mm-hmm.
even before I inject or change surgically, the body's already in a distorted frequency of confusion. And now how can it provide for me, be the vessel for me that it came to be, when I'm telling it otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we forget, and this is also, there's so many layers to this, because like we don't investigate further, right? Coming back to investigation is so important. Why do I feel like I am a man? Or why do I feel like I need to be independent? Why do I feel that being a housewife is not enough? Where is that coming from,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't ask those questions. We just follow. We're like, oh, we hear
Yep.
things. Okay, this is what we're doing. Oh, most of the people are like, oh, okay, let's tell our kids that it's okay not to know their sex, they them now, and it's just like, no, 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 no. Especially for me, and you have kids, like when it comes to the kids, like when it got to that point, I was like, okay, I was gonna be quiet, but now we're here, and now you're gonna meet Claudia, and I call her New York Claudia because I'm from New York. You gonna meet New York Claudia now, and you're not gonna like it, and we're gonna go in a way that you can't deny me, because I know my esoteric background, hermeticism, alchemy. Talk to me, but
Mm-hmm.
also what I wanted to go to is, it goes as far as even past lives. What if there's a past life where I was a man, right? And maybe there was a traumatic space and I died traumatically and I couldn't heal that, and I'm coming into that. And that could also falter into my light of a little bit of distortion, right? So what I'm saying is that we need the shamans in this life to come forth and help people reorient the spirit, because that also can be a
Mm-hmm.
part of it, right? The spirit is not in alignment with the body and the mind and the
Mm-hmm.
heart. And so distortion, frequencies of distortion can come in so easily, even as easy as listening to TV and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do that instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's how unaligned you are, that you allow TV to tell you how to live. Um,
Yep.
so it is so much deeper. So for the listener out there, I really want you to self-investigate these gender roles, right? They're not negative. They're not like you are less than if if you stay at home. As I had a phenomenal woman. She has the pre-housewife era class for women to come back
Mm-hmm.
into that space. What is that
Mm-hmm.
mentality? Because when you create a home and you're here raising the children for, as it is a team effort, but as the man, he's got to do his thing and I'm here to do my thing. But when you have the balance, the children are not going to fall into that distortion, right? They're gonna, like how you had, right? Your
Yep.
with your parents, right? For me, I didn't have that, but I thankfully had the self-awareness, right, to see and investigate, where am I? Oh, I'm more in my masculine, obviously, because I was raised by a masculine mother. My father was absent and I have brothers, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's move a little bit to this side, and like, where is the feminine? What is that like? So it's okay if you are not in balance. It's just having the awareness and coming back, right? And this is why, for the men out there, and having Purdeep here and speak on this, because we don't want you. My cry as a woman is having Purdeep here to be like, my cry is like, hey, there are men out there that are here to hold space, remind you of your masculinity, and it is healthy to feel what you feel, and to work with. It could be Purdeep, or like how you even said, there's other phenomenal men who you resonate, but we need you to come home to yourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because we as the women, we are struggling, we're suffering because you're not in your role, because you are the foundation to the family, right? You are that. And so that without you, the chaotic feminine has nowhere to land. She's just all over the place
Yep.
doing masculine and feminine things. Like, that's exhausting. So women out there, don't play yourselves and thinking that, I'm independent, I got this. You don't. Your children are struggling. They're gonna struggle. If you, as a single mom, you got everything. What is that saying to you, to your child, to your community? When we're all trying to help, we're all trying to be here together. And so, this is what you pulled out of me, Pradeep. This is what this conversation I really was just so excited to have you, because
Claudia?
in a really challenging space, and we can't falter, because our children will be the consequence to what is happening, to this distorted energy that isn't healthy. It's not a healthy space. I will share something that I heard the other day that was just over the top ludicrous. It was a woman who identifies as they, them, and she calls herself a vagina owner. And I almost fell over.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just like, you're a what now? What? Where are these words coming from? Where is this context? Where is, what? I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
just, what?
That for me, I've heard that too, and I think that's a very challenging place to be in that comment. When I heard that, I was so confused as well, because I was like, oh, we've gotten to this point where it's no longer, now it's a body part that you just have, and not respecting it.
No.
Yeah,
No.
and not respecting the energy that comes along with it.
Right? Because the portal, it's just magic. And thank you for saying that, because that was my thought too. I'm like, for her to say it that way, do you think to this woman who called her portal, her magic, her womb? We're called womb men for a reason. You think that her vagina, as a vagina owner, will produce children? Probably not. And if she does, they're not going to be in an organic space, because it's listening to her and how she talks about her own magical womb. So I just wanted to bring that, and thank you for like linking that, because how we talk to ourselves is not only how the mind perceives itself, it's how the body is being received, and how we are taking in the divine gift that is this life, and we're spitting at the face of it because we're so confused. Instead of saying, I'm confused. Why am I confused? Where can I
Yeah,
get guidance to get clarity? It is that simple. It
yeah.
truly is. And so here we are, showing, to the listener out there, like, if you feel lost, if you feel confused, figure out, where is that coming from? And if you don't know how, we're here. For the masculine, you have Pradeep. For the feminine, you have me. And in the community, we have so many people, even in his community, my community. So I feel like this is such an important topic and conversation, and I want to talk about this honestly for the rest of the year, because the energy is just really trying to penetrate the organic, divine aspects to our humanness, and we can't do that because of our children, just because of our children.
Yep, I agree.
The children are everything, and one of the things that I say to people that are so in their ego about their children, right? Their children this is my child, and I want them to be like mini me, and it's like, your children actually don't belong to you. They belong to the
Yep.
future of humanity, and it is your job to, how can I show them what that is? What is it that we need as a collective, right? Because we are fragmented as a collective. So how can people show their children where to go if they are fragmented within themselves, right? So,
Yeah.
Pradeep, how do you feel? How do you think or feel that we can call in more of our brethren, right? Our brothers, to feel okay to kind of come to, because I know it's difficult, right? To even go to another man and say, hey, I need help, bro.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. A is education. So any change, any growth requires education, and I think for men, tuning in to anything that they can to really expand their knowledge in this area is the first thing. The second thing is mentorship.
Mm.
and mentorship. And I think that's something that we lost. I was fortunate enough to be mentored by great people in my life. And when I say great people, these weren't successful people from the perspective of millionaires. We were talking
Right.
about individuals like my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just friends, just everyday people that had good wisdom, which is the key there. And wisdom goes a long way. So mentorship is another element. Find a mentor that can
Yes.
help you on your journey. And the third is a community. And there are communities out there for men. There's dads groups now. There are
Mm-hmm.
professional groups for men. We have our groups for men as well, professional men. So there's groups out there that you can join, that you can tap into and learn from. And so the more that you surround yourself with that type of energy, you will be not only more in line with it, but it'll come forward in terms of how you feel. You'll feel more natural, more like yourself, more in alignment when you're
Right.
in the right spaces.
Right. And before I let you go, how do you affect those men that are now in a space that's so filled with apathy that they can't feel, right? Where they're,
That
please,
it can't what, sorry?
they can't feel, right? They're in such an apathy space,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah, well, first, yeah, that's a really interesting one.
Mm,
That's very common, and it's not just that. It's not the feeling. It's they have all of these other roles outside that they don't know who they are as an individual, and that's
right.
where we have to get into at the core. Who are you as an individual? Who are you outside of that CEO, outside of the husband, outside of the father? And because their entire lives, which is different than feminine. Feminine are facing this challenge too, but not the same degree,
Right.
because men go on this journey more alone,
Yes.
and men have a different level of serving, and it's not as communal.
Right.
So men have adopted this role, which is all about, hey, look, performance and achievement, and forgotten who they are as a being. And that's what we have to get to. And sometimes that's tough. Sometimes that is
Yeah.
simply, hey, it's a tough question. Who are you if you weren't a husband? Who are you if you weren't a
Mm-hmm.
father?
Mm-hmm.
Who are
It
you?
is
And
a tough question.
many men can't answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we ask the question, who were you as a boy?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's how you
And
get there. I love that.
when we start to uncover those types of things, those, what do they love doing, what do they love playing, who did they
Mm-hmm.
play with, what kind of cartoons did they watch, what kind of stuff were they interested in,
Mm.
that's when we can get back into that. That
Mm.
can be a path for us to do that, but it's finding those different paths, and every man is different.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Purdeep. That was the whole conversation was just so beautiful. I am ever so so grateful to you and the work that you're doing, and you know, meeting you, I felt your masculine energy meeting. I'm like, oh my god, I definitely have to have this person. To have these conversations, and you're the one to do it. I have to talk in the spirit too. Spirit's like, yes, you can't cancel this, right? I was telling you, like, I'm like, I can't. So, I want to thank you again so so much for coming on today, and I'm making sure that I put on all your links out there, and people get in contact. Any man out there that is truly interested in working with you, please 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 reach out to Pradeep. And I wanted to give you a moment. What is the name of your podcast?
It's called a complete man.
Complete Man. And then your website.
It's purdeepsangha.com, so that's PURDEEPSANGHA.com.
Amazing. So before we close this beautiful circle out, Pradeep, is there any advice that you want to give to the listener today before we close?
Yeah, I would say one of the core meanings is, and this was taught to me by my grandfather. I would say one of the core meanings of life is to learn,
Mm.
and so that's my biggest advice to anybody: is continue to learn, because if you continue to learn, you will live, and I think that's
Yes.
the most important part.
Beautiful. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
so much. Your energy is everything that is needed today. And for anyone out there that is listening, please, please feel free to reach out to him. And I want to thank you all for expanding with us in this conversation. Please share if you feel like someone may need what was shared today, or they may want to work with Pradeep. And I want to thank you again, brother, from the bottom of my heart, truly and honestly.
Thank
naturally.
you for having me, Claudia. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So, everyone, thank you again. Remember that the breath is a secret and always lead with love. And until next time, thank you again.